Hi everyone, it's Alexa Man here. Well, today I bring you three stories. They're short stories, but I really hope you guys enjoy them. So, without further ado, number one. I was on a college trip in Hungary. We had been out drinking in one of the local bars. When I got back, I fell asleep instantly. That's when it happened. I've had some fairly realistic dreams in my time, but nothing quite like this. And that's if you can call it a dream. My vision came into focus and I felt the urge to get water from the bathroom sink. It was dark, a lot darker than the hotel room had been when I went to sleep. Everything was desaturated, like the color just didn't exist. As I made my way to the bathroom, I sort of became more aware of the surroundings. Aware that everything's the way it should be, but off at the same time. Kind of like being inside a movie about yourself. I started to hear noises, muffled at first, then whispering. I moved towards the door and checked out through the peephole. This was not the same place. A yellow sepia type light stretched across the hall. As terrified as I was, I have no idea what possessed me to open that door. It was like I was running on autopilot. I made my way down the corridor, which seemed endless, until something floated near my field of vision. It was a deep red envelope addressed to me. With arms stretched out, I tried walking forward to grab it, as it led me further and further down the corridor. It stopped suddenly, in an archway, enough for me to grab it and open it. It read, "You're going to hell." As soon as I read that, a cavern opened up, and the ladder shot down with me. I woke up. I had one leg outside the hotel room. It was a 30-foot drop. I pulled myself in. I don't sleepwalk, and the window was locked when I first entered the room. Number 2. When I was about 7, my dad was in charge of a company that, due to financial issues, had to lower their employees' payments. A lot of the employees were outraged, and they went on strike. There was a lot of action centered around my house. One morning, I was on the couch watching TV when I saw a guy standing in the hallway. I thought it was my dad until I saw that the man was missing his left leg. He hobbled away and I went after him. After turning the corner, I saw that the man had disappeared. I went to tell my parents about it. Immediately after that, a gunshot went through the window, right where I was sitting. If I hadn't gotten up to follow the figure, I would have been shot. The police identified the shooter as a worker of my dad's company. A few years later, when I was about 10, I was falling asleep when the closet door opened. In the dim light, I could see a figure standing in the doorway. The figure was missing its left leg. I screamed and turned on the lamp next to my bed. When I turned back, the figure was gone. My parents rushed in to see why I was screaming. When I told them, they believed me because of what had happened a few years ago. The next part was experienced by my sisters and their babysitter, because I was at a friend's house. They were sitting around watching TV when they heard knocking on the wall. They were the only ones in the house, and the knocking was coming from the wall inside the house. They got up to investigate and heard knocking on the opposite side of the house, then again in a different spot. They just sat there in the living room, huddled together as the house was filled with knocking, even in places that should have been impossible to reach. When my parents came home, the knocking stopped. My baby sisters and the babysitter told my parents what had happened. My parents paid the babysitters double for going through it. We decided that was the last straw and started packing up to move to a different house. When I went to the basement one day to gather up the things that were down there, I came across a wooden leg. The house burnt down just 2 weeks after we moved out. It still freaks me out thinking about it. Number 3. I'm currently at my job as I type this. I work for a large company's factory as their security. We do rounds, 2 hours at a time, and then swap out with the other guard on duty so they can do their rounds. The last round I was on scared the living hell out of me. The factory part of the plant itself can fit a couple football fields in it, so that takes up a decent portion of my rounds. My favorite route to take is the perimeter of the plant first, and then start from the back and work my way up to executive, marketing, and human resources office last. The whole round was going extremely smooth, considering all the workers were home for their holiday vacation, so it took less than an hour to finish checking the plant. I got to the door of the hallway that the human resources was attached to, unlocked it, and went in. The lights were all off, save for one overhead light down at the other end of the hallway, and a little bit of light coming from the plant. But that was normal for human resources after hours. I unlocked the side of the door to get into my checkpoint that I needed to scan and went in. As I went through the portion of the office, I froze to see a shadow of a man on the wall. If there was someone making that shadow, they would have to be in the hallway I just left. My heart started beating out of my chest and I felt panicked. The reason that my panic was odd was because I live, eat, and breathe spooky. So stuff like this doesn't really faze me. This time was different. I felt a complete sense of dread. There was no one in the hallway a few seconds prior, so I flipped on the light and finished checking the portion of the office. I flipped the light back off and hurried to the other portion of the human resources office. The whole time I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was directly behind me. The muscles in the center of my back were extremely tense at this point, and I couldn't get to scan to the point fast enough. I fumbled with my Tor wand, the device we use to scan checkpoints, and clumsily scanned the checkpoint. At that point, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes leering at me, so unlike any rational individual that would nope the hell out of there and not look back, I turned around. The same masculine shadow was against the wall in that section of the office, but this time it looked like it was posturing up. I went to hit the red button that unlocks the door to leave the human resource office, but in my panic, I couldn't hit it immediately. After about the 5th attempt to hit the button, I finally made contact, opened the door, and slammed it shut as I left. I went through the rest of my round shaken and noticing office chairs in random parts of the hallways and by the executive offices that were not there during my previous round. After I finished my round, I went back to the guard shack, which is where I'm at now. It happened about 2.5 hours ago, and I'm still really shaken up. I love paranormal investigations, horror films, and creepy stories, all of which only mildly creep me out at best, but this incident left me with a feeling of pure dread, helplessness, and terror. And I've only experienced this one other time, but that's another story for another time. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope y'all enjoyed these stories. I took them off of Reddit, and I know I promised you guys some, another story that I'd handwritten myself, but I'm currently working on it, and I'm hoping it to be a long one. Well, guys, with that, Alecha Man signing off.